Cool. Well, it was a pleasant surprise actually to see the tiny house pull up out front there, and this is Egan and his lovely partner here, Janelle. They are doing some really big things here in Denver, so I can't wait to kind of get to that towards the end of the conversation. But at Quality Audio Video, our whole thing is really design-focused technology, and so a lot of times the misconception of hearing the term AV in this world is really perceived as, oh, am I going to walk into a store like Best Buy and it's just going to be TVs everywhere? And so our entire really philosophy and goal is to focus on the experience and the lifestyle first, whether that's a 320 square foot tiny house or an 8,000 plus square foot luxury home. So we all have different things that really matter to us when it comes to how we live our lives, and so that's where we start, is what matters to you, what does your daily activity look like, and we can kind of engineer the system to match that. So have an awesome panel here today. This is super awesome. We've got Egan here with Stackhouse, Elie with TVL Creative. We got Tim with TKP Architects, Delroy Gill with Live Distinct, and Trent Minshall down here with Thomas Sattler Homes. All are just, you guys make the community such a better place, just bringing your talents and creative ideas to the table. So really the topic is smart planning for the future, and how can we together as a community make that happen. A lot of times, we'll see. You're okay. A lot of times, we'll get someone that comes to the table and they're like, "We want X, Y, and Z," and it's like, dang, if we would have had the conversation when the architects were involved or the builder, or how do we get everybody kind of talking together? And so, with the idea that design-focused technology is our specialty, I wanted to kind of kick it over to Elie and talk about, is timeless design even a thing? Like, can you design a home today for the future? And I'm going through a remodel currently, and I feel like I have my own opinions, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, Elie.
Sure. Okay, so when we first talked about this, my initial instinct was like, oh, God, I hate timeless design. When a client says that, it's usually like they want to play it super safe. They just want to, I don't know, do something that, because when you think of timeless design, a lot of it's like nostalgia's sake. You got marble, you got linens and things like that, but the things that just kind of transfer over in time. And to me, at times, I'm like, that doesn't have the personality. But then I started to think more about sort of the future of design planning, and timeless design doesn't just have to be materials. It's also thinking about the functionality of the home and creating spaces in the home where we're changing the way you're changing the way that you're interacting with the home, you're changing the way that you're sort of laying out everything. How do you create intent? And those are the timeless elements that at least we try and bring into design. So, in your remodel, it's how do you want to live in there? I'm sure you answered all those questions when you went through. But creating space that just feels well, that's easy to update, that's how I like to approach timeless design.
Thank you. And yeah, that kind of leads into, a topic as we kind of were planning this conversation around, even the thought of just aging in place, and whether you're building a house for today, you might not know what life deals you, 5 years from now, tomorrow, and so there's always that in mind as well. And so I wanted to kind of pivot over to Delroy here, as he gets firsthand experience with today's buyers and sellers. And what is it that you're finding that people are really either complaining about, like, oh yeah, this is getting ripped out for sure, or man, I wish this environment had X, Y, or Z, so kind of maybe you can speak a little bit about today's market.
Thank you everyone for coming too. I think the timeless design and what people are taking out of homes and putting back in is almost in line with kind of fashion trends, and how I've got kids and they're all kind of, my daughter's wearing like this luminous pink outfit and thinks like it's this new thing. I'm like, no, that was like in the 80s and 90s. This has been here. So sometimes it's almost like, how long are you willing to wait until the next cycle to come back around, because it will come back into fashion again. And it's the same thing with homes. Right now, one of the biggest things everyone who's buying a home is looking for. I'm working from home at the moment. I need extra space. I need a place. My partner needs a space to work, and everyone wants these like desk spaces, extra additional space. And I just remember 5 years ago, those were all getting torn out. Like, why do we have this desk space in the kitchen? We need more cabinet space because we got more stuff to buy. And now everyone's stockpiling in their basements and wants that kind of office space again. But so everything goes in cycles, whether it's now in style or not. You just got to wait for a moment for it to come back around again.
I think that's so true. And when I was remodeling our kitchen, taking the cabinets out, I'm getting like fuchsia pinks and purples on the wall. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see some of that trend even today, though. I'm like, it's coming back. So I think you make a really valid point that history kind of repeats itself. What was happening 5 or 10 years ago tends to we see it back in today's environment as well. So that kind of leads me over to Tim, I guess, with just lifestyle and cultural shifts in general, and kind of what you've been seeing on your end from the architect viewpoint.
So as an architect, I do think about smart planning for the future. To me, it really comes into 2 categories. One is anticipating lifestyle changes, and the other is anticipating cultural changes. And lifestyle changes are easier to predict. We know that most of us are going to get old. Hopefully we all get old. And as we age, most of us will probably have like lessened mobility. So things like flush thresholds throughout the home, that's hugely important. But the reason I say lifestyle change as opposed to just saying age in place is because it's not just aging. Sometimes if you have an accident, if you have a disease, there are lots of things that can change the way that your body functions and the way that you move. And all of those affect how your house has to be designed. Cultural changes are harder to anticipate. As Delroy mentioned, COVID came in and all of a sudden all of us are working from home. And so now that's just kind of bread and butter for TKP Architects is we're designing home offices in all of our projects. What is the next cultural shift? I don't know. But I think the key with cultural shifts is to just kind of like keep your ear to the ground, see what's happening, and try and anticipate what the near future holds as opposed to looking, 30, 40 years down the road. We don't know. And I think part of smart planning for the future is anticipating what you can and then not worrying about the rest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, even during our pre-talks, like thinking about how much planning can be done today for tomorrow. And we've heard even from some clients, it's like, should I be really focused on the person that's going to live in this home after me? Like, what about me? I want to enjoy the home today. Like, can we build this for me and let them figure it out later? And so there's some of that balance as well. And, I think that ties in with a lot of the cultural shifts. We don't know what tomorrow brings. And from our perspective, we can at least get a lot of the wiring in place. And, that way people can phase things in that do matter to them over time. They might not know, okay, today I want, X, Y, and Z, but 5 years from now, we might want the Ethernet in the kitchen because, the kids are homeschooled and we need an extra office space and we don't really have it anywhere else. So that kind of brings me up to, as people are starting to really find the right builder here in Colorado, and they end up over here with Thomas Sattler Homes. Trent, what are you kind of doing from, the builder's perspective as far as some of this topic goes on smart planning for the future?
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you all for coming again. Dusty, thanks for having me. I love being here this morning. From a builder perspective, there's kind of 3 lenses to look at smart planning through, and that is for the homeowner, for the home from a resale perspective, and for the environment. And for the homeowner, similar process to what Tim described. At Thomas Sattler Homes, when we sit down with our customers, we're going to talk about your lifestyle, how you live in the home. And part of that smart planning is a lot of what Tim touched on. Things happen, things change. So every customer's lifestyle is where we begin that design conversation. Maybe they're empty nesters with kids off to college. Well, we want to make sure we have some bedrooms in there for those summers they come back. Maybe they're going to be with mom and dad for a time afterwards. Other customers are adamant, we don't want that to happen, so we're not going to have some carve-out rooms. Aging is another, familiar topic that we have, talking about, let's look 10, 15, 20, 30 years ahead of time. Do we want to rough in an elevator or put in something with some consideration there? Maybe your parents are aging, and out of consideration for them, we want to design in a main level guest suite. So they don't have to worry about stairs when they come to visit. Maybe we're talking about nanny's quarters, above the garage or a casita. So there's a lot that goes into designing a home around the lifestyle for the homeowner. And in terms of, and how they like to live too. If they entertain a lot, we're going to be designing a lot more, outdoor living spaces, lifestyle spaces to enhance that. If they're more private people, we're going to change the design to a different direction and really cater it to how they live. But then the second piece is smart planning for future, for resale. So even though many times our customers will come in and say, this is going to be my forever home, a lot can change. We don't know, the hand that life deals us, curveballs can come, changes happen, and when that does, we want to kind of think about contingencies for selling the home. So we're usually the devil's advocate in those conversations. An example might be maybe a customer wants a meditation prayer room. Maybe that's culturally appropriate for that customer. And so, of course, we'll design that out. But we're going to say, from a resale perspective, maybe this wants to be a future bedroom. So let's rough in a bathroom, planning in advance. And so we'll do things like that as considerations to help them think through best practices for the resale. And then third, smart planning for the environment. Today's building industry has come a long ways from where we were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. With code, we've got a lot more materials now that we can work with that are much more eco-friendly in terms of insulation, in terms of recycled carpet, low off-gas paints, green tech. Photovoltaic is huge now. We're seeing a lot of charging stations in garages, solar going up on the roof. We're seeing occasionally even geothermal, right? So smart cooling and heating. There's really some fun technologies that are being introduced more and more regularly in the building industry, and that's just a good testament of what we can do to be better stewards of the resources we have here, trying to be mindful of future generations and what they're going to inherit. So those are all some ways that we smart plan. And probably the last piece I would touch on from a builder perspective, everyone here is very familiar with the supply chain constraints the industry's been seeing lately. It's been a challenge, and when you build, any builder, but especially us at Thomas Sattler Homes, our focus is on building your home on time, on budget, maximum value, and expert craftsmanship. The real challenge there is on time. When we went from lead times that might be 3 months on this product that now is a 9-month lead time, suddenly how do we adapt to that? Well, we're changing our purchasing. It's coming much, much sooner. We're having to integrate into the construction schedule so that it's not going to cost us time and delay a project. Other things you're seeing in the building industry, temporary material swaps are becoming more of a common workaround. An example might be a customer's dishwasher selected. We might find out it has a 3-month increase to lead time. What do? We're going to install a different one so it doesn't hold up completion and closing, and then we'll swap it out when it comes in. So things like that you're having to see more and more frequently of just how we adapt. And I'd say the last would be customer selections. We're having to get those in much, much sooner than we used to. Some of our tile vendors can speak to that, right? When the runway gets extended, suddenly we have to change the agenda with the customers to get those decisions made much earlier on so that they're ordered, and we can get them on site when they need to be there to keep things moving. Probably a little long-winded.
No, that was amazing. I love it. And you said a few really good things there. And one, kind of tying it back to, how do we become a sustainable culture and, plan a little bit more green to leave a smaller footprint and that kind of thing. And, one way that we're doing that is with low volt lighting. This entire facility is 6,000 square feet, and it's just shielded speaker wire running to all the lighting. So you can take the entire lighting of this facility and plug it into 12 amps worth of power. So we're seeing that now carry over into the residential builds as people want to kind of have that smaller footprint. You know, I think traditionally, and forgive me because I'm fairly new to the industry and learning a lot about this kind of thing as I go. Traditionally, you know, the Romex wire would come up to the top and then at the last minute get converted to, you know, your LED. And the Department of Energy is really saying, you know, that's the issue where the fail point is, you know. So we have put it all into a rack, and I can kind of show you guys a little bit when we're finished up, you know, on what that actually looks like and how it's kind of brought to life. But I think that, you know, seeing that kind of come to life more and more is kind of tying back into the culture shift that we spoke about. But Egan, I want to bring you up because obviously, you know, as you know, we're talking about leaving a smaller footprint on what we're doing in this community. You guys have such a phenomenal thing that you're bringing here to Colorado. And when I say thing, that the beautiful tiny house out here on the trailer that you may have seen parked off of Colfax, but a lot of buzz, and you guys are certainly making a big splash here in Denver. And so just kind of want to talk about, you know, when you're reducing your size and maybe adventure or travel is kind of more important than the size of the home. What was the solution that you guys thought of?
Yeah. So in listening to all of the other experts talk, what I'm hearing is and this was sort of the impetus for Stackhouse, is there's a lot of tension between what you or the person you're designing for wants from their home while they're living in it, and what they hope to get from the investment in the future. And so our concept was just to completely bifurcate the two. So we sell a shipping container tiny home that you can design to meet your exact specifications, whatever you want for your home, bright pink, doesn't matter. And it docks in a space that will service all of our shipping container homes. And so you also buy the space. So when you want to move, you don't pack up your stuff and sell your space. You close the door on your house, we take it out of the tower, ship it to the next tower, and install your home there, and you can sell your dock to someone else. So you don't have to worry about any of those design choices as you're going through, because no one is going to be buying your house. Your house just goes to the next destination. So I think that's our answer, is to stop the tension between the two and create a solution where you can get exactly what you want for as long as you want it and not compromise on the investment portion, which is just the land. You just need a house that someone else is willing to buy, right? That's what you need at the end. The land is the part that's important, and so that's what we're trying to do, is separate the two. So.
That's so amazing. And when I first had you in to learn more about the company and everything that you guys are up to, you know, community kept coming up over and over again, you know, and the importance of community. And obviously with all of you here, you know, and the way that life went last year, you know, community changed really fast. And, you know, we wouldn't be doing this, you know, last year. And so I loved hearing more about, you know, just how people are encouraged to come into that community space, even towards the top. I think you mentioned a car for rent that they would have access to kind of get around town. I don't know. Do you want to expound a little?
Sure. So our premise is we just want to build exactly what you need. So we're not going to build a pool just because we can charge you for it. So we are going to have an electric vehicle that you'll be able to reserve in our community app. If you need to go out to the mountains, you won't have to have a car in the development. And all of this is, we have a piece of land on West Colfax and King, that is already out of concept for 62 of those container homes in an 8-story development. And so the whole idea is we build those tower marinas in every city, and so you'll be able to ship your home from place to place, which means you can't be shipping your car there. You need to have a car that's available to you when you get there. It also means that you can't be setting up new utility deposits when you get there, or new property tax payments. So we include those in a $250 a month HOA. So all of your internet, utilities, everything. That incentivizes us to make every unit as efficient as possible, because we're paying that bill. We're not just putting it on the homeowner. So we're putting in solar panels on the building. There are battery backups in each of the homes so that we can power the entire development overnight, and any excess power is then used to mine crypto. So we're trying to make everything as efficient as humanly possible.
I love it. You're like the kind of guy that we need to like. We want to have a beer or a coffee, and like this conversation is going to go much further. Obviously, I know I love it so much, and kind of tying things back into the footprint that we're leaving. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yep.
I just wanted to, when it comes to accessibility, that is the one thing that we do not compromise on. Every single unit is universally accessible, and that's because I think that when you open up accessibility to any group of people, you improve it to everyone, even those that you're not intending. So I cared for a quadriplegic uncle until he passed away, and I still notice every time a single mom gets on an elevator with her stroller, and I say my uncle's disability was responsible for that convenience, and so that's why I think that all of those accessibility issues are important, because they benefit all of us.
Thank you so much. That helps tie in where this is headed so much more. So I appreciate that. Speaking of the accessibility and kind of building green and smaller footprint and that kind of thing, Eli, you shared with me there was a recent client that I think they wanted 100% recyclable materials used within the remodel. And so maybe you can expound on, when you get a request like that, yes, we want to be proactive. Yes, we want to do everything we can. But with lead times in mind and with other things, maybe you can tell me how that conversation went.
Sure. I had a client that, like Dusty said, wanted everything recyclable so that when they move out of the house, they were saying, I want none of this going to a landfill. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I want that too. But then I was like, you realize like none of us are in control of that in the end. Because if I just buy a house and I'm like, I don't like any of this, I'm literally just going to get it out of here as cheap as possible. So it's going to a landfill probably no matter what. So we just had to be a little smarter. And also, I'm not LEED certified. I'm not the expert in picking the most green things, like some of the things that you were mentioning, Trent. But definitely an area to learn, but also to keep that in mind as we're planning for the future. How do we get this, I don't know, whether it's compostable materials, because really when we're building out these homes and we're talking about timelessness, the reality is, in 20 years, whether it's timeless or not, like whoever's coming in, if they don't like it, they're tearing that thing out and they're redoing it anyhow. So just plan to enjoy it as you want, and then know it's, unfortunately, we don't have a better process quite yet for getting that out of there in a green way, I think.
Yeah, and I think we almost came up with a motto for this talk, talking with Tim, and I'll see if I can't butcher this, but smart planning for the future to a degree without compromising today. And, which I really loved. We also shared some laughs when that kind of popped up in conversation, but, kind of bringing it back to the accessibility side of it, I didn't even think of, just the transition from the garage to whether it's the mudroom or the kitchen or whatever that entry point is. I've always noticed that there's a step there, but Tim brought up a good point that, that's one thing that they're really focusing on is trying to minimize elevation changes through the home to make it more accessible. Am I saying that right? Maybe you can expound a little.
No, that's absolutely. There are a few things, kind of general rules that we try to think of in our designs, because they're not gonna cost you anything. They're not gonna impede the design for today, but they might come in really handy in the future. One of them is flush thresholds, so trying to avoid steps wherever you can. Wider doorways is really important for wheelchairs, heavy set people. Wider doorways make a big difference. Another thing that we like to do is plan for elevators, like Trent mentioned. And you don't even have to have a big hole in the floor. Like, you don't have to build the elevator shaft. You can frame the elevator shaft and then literally infill that hole with conventional framing, and you've got a walk-in closet. 5x5 space. It's the right size for a walk-in closet. It's also the right size for an elevator. Things like that. We will sometimes literally pour the elevator pit into the concrete slab in the basement and then frame over it, because someone knows that they will probably have an elevator later, but either A, they don't want to pay for it now with the initial construction, or they want to keep that space open or use it for, like I mentioned, closets. So those kinds of things where a little bit of like forethought up front will make a big difference later on.
I have a fun story to share about an elevator, actually. I was at an Airbnb with my family recently, and to my surprise, this Airbnb had an elevator in it, and I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son, and of course, we now have endless entertainment for the evening that we were staying. But my daughter, she's going up and down. She finally gets the hang of it. She's starting to control it herself, and I, failure of a father, thought it would be a good idea to wait on the second floor and scare her. And after I had already kind of planted the seed in her head that, what if all of a sudden the door opened and you got scared? And so this poor little girl, she gets to the second floor, and the door was like struggling to open anyway, so it was like a hard stop, so I just kind of helped nudge it open a little bit more, and it was like, roar. And her, God bless her, she just took off, ran, hid in the closet upstairs. I was like, wow, I think probably scarred her for the rest of my life. But so elevators can turn into entertainment pieces as well when you're not expecting. And I had to bring that in just to kind of, I like telling stories. So, Delroy, I want to tie things back to your side of this conversation a little bit. And we've seen definitely an influx of people moving to Colorado recently. I feel like when the remote environment kind of came to life, that allowed more people the freedom to say, well, maybe I don't have to live in New York or California or Las Vegas or Florida, or wherever they're coming from. I've always wanted to live in Colorado, and maybe I can work remote there. And so I'd like to just maybe kind of put the conversation back in your hands and see, what are you hearing and seeing as far as, when they're coming to Colorado, I guess, what are some of the things that are important to them? And, as they adapt to the Colorado lifestyle. I mean, we all love living outside, and the outdoor living is a big part of our lives, and we've certainly seen an influx in outdoor spaces, whether that's audio and video, music everywhere is kind of our thing. And so just curious if you're seeing that translate in requests on your end.
Yes is the answer. But no, the buyers and everyone that's moving to Colorado now definitely are more discerning. They have a taste level that they have expectations to be met. Because on the coastal markets, they had elevated prices for so long, and the builders were competing with one another in those marketplaces to always bring the newest technology, what's the best of the best I can give for these buyers, where they had, prices going up to 50 million years ago before in Denver. And the opposite is said for here, right? We have this amazing casual kind of lifestyle where we didn't need to have as much indoor outdoor space as we really had outdoors. Like, we really have trails, mountains, and activities that we could enjoy. But now these buyers that are moving, and I'm not the guy bringing everyone from California, FYI, just to be clear here, okay? They call me, I house them. That's it. But the technology and the expectations that they have are definitely, this facility showcases a lot of what people are expecting in those homes, because that's what they're used to. They know. I went into a $3 million house, I was telling Dusty, and there was a 7-gang light switch operation going on in a $3 million property, and the buyer was like, what is this? Like, I need one button to click these all off. But everyone's needs are going to be specific, like everyone said on the panel, and I would say that sometimes we think about tech and technology and all this kind of fast pace for like the internet and that stuff, but it is really translating into our home and how we live. And a lot of times people think that they don't need it, or think that, this isn't that important. And then I've seen buyers over and over, I sell them a house that has a ton of automation, and they're like, I'm never going back to not having it, just for security reasons, for functionality of the home. So do your research, like come to panels like this is amazing, but understand what you're looking for in a home, because more than likely, if you're starting to think that way for the future, the buyers that are coming into town are already thinking that way. So you are going to see money out of those improvements, whereas before it was classified over improving your property if you were putting outside speakers and panoramic doors and all of those types of things. But today in real estate, you are really seeing an increase in value in your property because of it.
Thank you so much. And yeah, to that comment about the 7-gang, switch banks, we like to call it wall acne. It's like you have all this amazing design aesthetic in your home, and yet it's like, what are we looking at? It's like my eye just goes to that spot on the wall. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like, is this the lamp? I don't know. What's happening here? Oh, man. We have some examples around the other side of this wall that kind of tie into the solutions that kind of minimize that I guess pet peeve we'll call it, so that you can have a designer keypad that has all kinds of different design elements, whether it's leather or glass or even the frame that goes around your TV. If you want that wrapped in the same leather as your couch, it can all tie into every piece of the home. It doesn't have to just be left out and have a 99-cent Home Depot two-way switch on the wall. So speaking of pet peeves, throw this one out. We don't have this planned. This just kind of popped in my head. I'm just curious if any of you have a pet peeve that you'd like to maybe kind of dispel. Like what is the one thing that happens in your industry that's just like, I wish that the public would know this so that we could stop doing that. Who's up? We got somebody. We got a taker. Does anybody want to go? Everybody's like, no. Yeah, without making anybody look bad. Obviously, you'll go. All right.
This is it's not related to the topic because this is just pet peeves here, but. In real estate, there's a term that I use and a lot of real estate agents probably use, which is called chasing the market. And a lot of times when people move to Denver and with the market we're in that we've been in for such a long time, when it's your home that you are going to live in, this is whether it's your dream home that you're building or this is your first time home, like when you can afford it and you're comfortable doing that, purchase that home because you're going to live there, you're going to do your improvements, the market's going to, you can't control all of that outside noise, so just live your best life. Don't try and get the ultimate bee's knees with every bell and whistle in it out the gate. Get what you can afford, buy it, and move on because most of the time you will lose the chase. The market will outpace whatever you're trying to do to get into the market.
I love that you brought that up actually, and in today's market, even on a more approachable side of it, what would you advise the person that is like, man, every house I'm putting an offer in, I have to come 20,000 over asking price. It's like it's just their dreams are getting crushed left and right, and so in a market that's so tough like Colorado, is there any advice that you give just to kind of build hope a little? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tim, you had something you wanted to add? Yeah.
Do you want to speak to that?
No.
All right. Well, I just want to say, in terms of dream crushing, this isn't a pet peeve, but it is something I have to do, is dream crushing. And, I mean, it is sad. Cost of construction is really high. This market is aggressive, whether you're building new or purchasing, existing inventory. So one piece of advice that I like to give my clients is prioritize what's most important to you, and then accept the fact that you're not going to get everything on your wish list. That may sound harsh, and yes, some people do get everything on their wish list, but most of us have to, I don't want to say compromise, but compromise. Most of us, exactly, you prioritize. It's like you've got 50 things you want to get out of a house, but these, 5 are non-negotiable. So you got the 5, everything else is extra on top. And that kind of practical mentality will serve you really well in this market, and especially with custom home construction the way it is right now.
Yeah, go for it.
Tim, that was well said, and we have those same conversations with our customers, with our architectural team, for the same reasons. even in the luxury arena where our average price points are, $2 to $4 million homes, we still have the same budget sensitivity oftentimes that we would with a project much, much lower. So we do have those same conversations. He's exactly right. We prioritize with the customer. What's most important? We're going to take that estimate list and go line by line item. And if we don't have much contingency there in budget, we just get realistic and talk market facts, right? In this kind of inflationary economy where we see cost increases almost on a weekly basis as a builder, we do have to get really judicious around budget. How we design and build is with budget first and foremost. That's where we start the process, is where we start the conversation. It's not an accident to end up on budget at the end of a project. It's like GPS, right? We plug it in, that's our roadmap. We have our process with milestones all the way to make sure we get there. And so those are the conversations that we sometimes have to have. If the budget can't accommodate this here and now, maybe we need to talk about some future phase-ins. QAV is a wonderful segue to that talking point. Many times, they're of course our go-to trusted partner for all things low V and automation. We love QAV. And when we bring customers here to talk through that process, oftentimes they're here to discover things they didn't even know existed on the cutting edge of technology, like the newest, latest, and greatest. And home automation, low V, all these cool things that they feature here in this award-winning showroom. But with that said, when we bring customers here and suddenly they see all the bells and whistles and they actually know of what's possible, what could be, they get big eyes, it gets emotional, we get a really long wish list, and then we talk about budget. And if it's not in line to have everything we want then and there, it's much smarter for us to phase it in and rough in that low V, because we can come back in a year or two or whenever is comfortable and start to bring in more and more of those toys and bells and whistles. And for example, Chris, who's off camera, but he can tell you on the operations side, when we plan and rough in some low V fun and toys from the design build stage, it's going to be a fraction, maybe a tenth of what it's going to cost on the other end when Delroy's folks come up and say, oh, we moved from California, and here's this ugly 7 gang, and here's this, and that, and we want to upgrade. You're tearing out drywall, paint, all of these things, and it's considerably more, as opposed to if we just phase it in, smart plan from the beginning, and then it saves everybody a lot more time and hassle.
Let me just give it one. And because we're talking about luxury in these big homes, I want to just give this premise that you have to also understand that in the $500,000 price point, or even $450,000 these days, a lot of these new home builders, they're including this stuff. So that basic brand new to this whole world of concept of home ownership is also expecting this, because when they buy their second home and their third home, they're already going to be programmed to this is the way homes function as well. So this isn't just for the luxury market. This is going to be in the future, as we were saying, for every single homeowner is going to have these It's almost like a laptop now versus a desktop. Like everyone is going to expect you to have a laptop if you had some type of license, a cell phone versus a house phone. These things are just going to be normal expectations of how people are going to be living.
You guys really set this up great. Thank you so much, because it really ties into foundation, right? Like we're collectively building an amazing foundation, what I like to call like a legacy. You know, these people could live in their home their entire time, but each person gets to kind of have a piece in that puzzle. And, you know, I always, when I go visit my hometown up in Gillette, Wyoming, I take the kids by the house I grew up in, you know, I'm like, this is where I grew up. This is my stomping grounds. You know, it's just fun, you know, it's like, I think that really ties into what's happening here in Colorado. You know, you're truly building a legacy for families, whether we realize it, you know, collectively or not. These things live on well beyond tomorrow, you know. And with the foundation, you know, kind of going back to what Trent was saying, you know, it is a fraction of the cost to put the wire in place. You know, if the wire is there, you're not having to do what Delroy's having to do at his house right now and rip out drywall and do all these things like that. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks for the reminder of the headache. I trust me, I just went through remodeling as well, and it was not fun to live there during the process. So my heart goes out to all the people that fight through that process. But yeah, the foundation, you know, just really having the infrastructure in place, you know, and having something to stand on, because the builders are, you know, making this it's like not a requirement, but almost a prerequisite. Like, here's the standard that you get. And then you can build from there, and to see that kind of catch on. I think the statistics said by next year, 50% of all homes in America will be smart in some capacity or another, whether that's a Google or an Alexa or, some other off-the-shelf thing that's helping control your house. Like, home automation is here to stay. And I think one of the, even outside of home automation, is, the environment, with COVID and the air that we breathe and the quality that we breathe. We're seeing a huge uptick in, especially even in the millennials, wanting to have some kind of system in their home to improve the air quality. Like, hey, we want to make sure that this is being filtered properly. And unlike me at my house, trying to remember to take out that filter every, what is it supposed to be? Like, no, I think I did probably like 3 months ago, 4 months. No, I pull that thing out. I'm like, God, I probably should have done this a year ago. No, I always forget about that thing. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, automate that process. I think there's companies that do that, just ship right to your door. But no, I think, having, the foundation in place is really important, and it sets us all up for success. And, at the architect level, having the conversations on how do we avoid the 5-gang light switch, can that be planned for ahead of time? Because it's certainly easier to do centralized lighting at that level than it is when you've already bought the house and things are in place. So, I don't know. I think we're kind of coming to an end here. I do want to throw one more surprise at everybody because this one's a fun one. Eli's like, okay, I'm going home now. The question that I like to ask is, if we all went to bed tonight and we woke up tomorrow and we looked out the window and there was a big blimp flying across Colorado, and you had the opportunity to put a word or a sentence or something on the banner that the blimp was pulling behind it for all of Colorado to see. I'll play some elevator music while you all wait and think of what you want to say. No, who wants to go first, I guess? You have a... Okay, I'll go first. My motto in life is, I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite. And I think that's probably what I would put on the blimp, because I just want to encourage other people to lighten up a little bit, like have fun in life. That we're surrounded by a lot of negativity, and a smile goes a long way. When you're walking out and about, greet someone with a smile. We don't have to be so stiff. So
I don't know if mine's as happy, but it's meant to be as happy. I actually got this from my middle school teacher. He would always, because I was a fairly critical person, he would always tell me the cost of criticism is a better idea. And I think that that's something that our country could benefit from, is the cost of criticism is a better idea. If you want to see something improve, go about and do that.
Oh boy. All right. So I think, I think honestly, the first thing that I would want is just for something to just say, just go outside. But I'm a classic Coloradan in that sense. But also, if I had to do something else, I'd say let's all embrace the 4-day work week.
I'm just gonna say this. Don't laugh at me. So I've got daughters. We like Disney movies. We like princess movies. So my blimp banner is a quote from a princess movie. In the live action Cinderella, the advice that is given to Cinderella from her dying mother is have courage and be kind. And as far as, how to live your life, you can't top that. Have courage and be kind.
That was really good. Mine is my mantra: everything is possible through mindset and action. And then I'd have my phone number because I'm still a sales guy.
Well said. Well, I feel like these guys took all the good, personal development, personal growth. Those are some good ideas. Let's see. All right, Egan, you're going to get excited about this one. I'm going to steal Dogecoin, and I would say do only good to everyone. We'll put that up there, but we'll have to avoid the logo because I can't be repping for Elon and Doji. He gets in enough trouble with the SEC for market manipulation.
Sorry to throw that all on you guys. Keep everybody on their toes. Yeah, I got to keep it live, right? Well, I want to offer you guys the chance to ask any questions if you have any in the audience here before we kind of wrap up. Dude, yeah. And we're out. Yes.
What we think collectively, or maybe it's like, I don't know. Maybe I missed this in the earlier part of the panel. Sorry, I'm late. But what is the best piece of advice for us as remodeling specific folks for planning ahead for tech? Because most of our projects come in dated and we're talking about major rip outs. So what is the best way to balance undoing the entire home and integrating something new and giving the client something to look forward to in terms of integration that can meet budget needs? That's where we struggle a lot, is being able to give them what they want without ripping the whole house apart. A lot of times we have to leave a lot intact. So what's the best strategy for coming in as a remodeling specific person and finding a way to integrate better? Is there some trick to that that I can know about? Or is it just to undo it all?
Yeah, just rip it all out. No. I might divert, Chris, to you. Do you have any thoughts that you can add to that conversation?
So the remodel game's hard, right? Because you do have a budget, right? And how much of the house do you actually want to tear down? So it's a difficult conversation to have sometimes. The best thing that we can tell you is, kind of what these guys have alluded to. Make a wish list, make a priority list of your must-haves, and let's see what we can, get done for you inside budget. Anything's possible with time and money, right? So we can make anything happen. It's really just kind of prioritizing where the client wants and what their overall vision is.
Eli, do you want to expound on any of that, on what you've seen on?
This is sort of a plug for QAV now, but the best thing that I did was just get involved early, and they want to be involved way earlier than I expected. The second I do a rough preliminary electrical schematic, I sent some stuff over to Dusty, and he was able to say, all right, this is probably where we're going to need to put everything. And I didn't even think that far ahead. I just thought they're just magicians, and boom, we got it. But the earlier you can get them involved, the better, I think, is honestly the best thing. And that made me more comfortable moving forward with my project.
From both going in current remodel mode personally and coming from a real estate perspective, I would say, think about the function that they're looking for, before the aesthetic, because the design aspect of things can really drive price up, right? But the function can still be there. So, and also what they're going to receive money back from on a resale value versus, what do they just want and gonna pay for. So in my house, for instance, it was builder grade at the beginning. There wasn't all this cool low voltage, but I did want everything on the dimmer. I wanted all the lights app controlled. So I'm not going to go through, rip out the entire drywall and rewire the house, but I did switch out all of the switches to make it so it's functional within the app. So things like that, where it's like, how far do you want to go? If I change that wire into low voltage, I may experience some savings today, but the next buyer is not going to pay me back the money to change that wiring out. It's so do what's going to be also cost effective for them.
That makes sense. And if the project gets too overwhelming, you could just get a tiny house and no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding, but I'm kidding. No. That is, by the way, open for tours. So as we kind of finish up here, if anybody doesn't have any other questions, you're welcome to ask them. We'll hang out, light networking. I can show you guys some fun stuff here in the showroom. The tiny house is open. We also have, speaking of outdoor living and lifestyle, really phenomenal phenomenal outdoor audio demos happening on the backside where the landscaping is. There's some phenomenal things there, so I'd pop back there and just give those a listen before you leave. Help yourself to food. Beverages are hidden in here, so yeah, sky's the limit. But we appreciate everybody coming down. I know it was a drive, so thank you so much for your time today.